Entrepreneurship and Innovation team at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And in my role, I support funding programs through the MEDC that assist in the commercialization of technology from all of our universities, hospital systems, or nonprofit research centers across the state. And as we'll learn in a bit, university technology commercialization intersects with our SmartZone network. Today, I have the pleasure of hosting the first in a series of 5 conversations this week about our statewide SmartZone partner network. Supported in part through the MEDC Entrepreneurship and Innovation Initiative, there are 21 smart zones across the state of Michigan that provide distinct geographical locations where technology-based companies, entrepreneurs, and researchers can locate themselves near community assets that can assist in their endeavors, whether it be to license their technology or to create and further their startups. The Smart Zones partner with local universities and include technology business accelerators that provide various resources and services to Michigan entrepreneurs. To kick off today's conversation, I am delighted to participate and to introduce you to 2 key colleagues from the Upper Peninsula, Dan Jamison, CEO of the Michigan Tech Enterprise Corporation Smart Zone in Houghton, and Rachel Barra, Program Manager of the Innovate Marquette Smart Zone and Invent at NMU in Marquette. Welcome, Dan and Rachel. Let's start off by learning a little bit more about you and your respective roles within your organization. So Rachel, why don't you lead the way by telling us a little bit about yourself, your organization, the services that your Smart Zone provides, and how you collaborate with your local and statewide ecosystem.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Denise, for the intro. My name is Rachel Barra. I am from the Upper Peninsula. I actually grew up in a really small town called Perrineville, where you blink and you drive through and you'll miss it. But I went to Northern Michigan University and graduated in 2016 with a degree in entrepreneurship. During my senior year there, I was actually able to work at Invent at NMU as a project manager, a student employee at the university program. So that's really where I got my start into this whole entrepreneurial support environment. For those of you that don't know, Invent at NMU is a program at Northern Michigan University that's really there to help people with physical product and small business ideas. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I was able to work there as a student employee, and then I stayed on for 1 year after I graduated, helping manage the day-to-day operations of the student employees before transferring to my role at the Smart Zone in 2017, when the Smart Zone took over management of the program on behalf of the university. As a program manager, I do just about anything and everything that needs to be done. We didn't have a marketing manager till last year, so I've done social media, I've done events running and planning. I've helped on special initiatives with, corralling different groups in the community and having focus groups, all the way through to, helping clients apply for grant funds or other opportunities, and as well as our office, our program actually applying for other grants as well. So kind of jack of all trades, figure out however we need to help to push the path forward, a very much startup mentality at our organization. Our Smart Zone is only 5 years old, which is it was a bit of a contrast compared to the Smart Zone up at Michigan Tech that Dan will be talking about, which has actually been around, I think, for 15 to 20 years. I'll let him get into the details there. But yeah, that's how I got my start in the entrepreneurial support ecosystem. And we'll be talking a little bit more detail-wise about what our Smart Zones do, but largely our Smart Zone really does consulting and helping people that have their product or business ideas that are tech-related.
Great information. Thank you, Rachel. Now, Dan, if you would continue by sharing a bit about yourself and your organization, the services that your Smart Zone provides, and how you collaborate with the local and statewide ecosystem.
Sure. I come to this from a career in large technology companies and some startup technology companies and some universities. Joined them about 18 months ago here. We have incubator facilities. We've got 3 buildings that we fill with startup organizations. We provide everything from M&A advice to funding advice to pitch development, things of that nature. We also have a little bit of programming. We have a Smart Start program, for example, where we reach out into the community, work to teach people that it's okay to have an innovation. We'll fill the entrepreneurial stuff around you. We'll put you into our incubators, and we will help you get to the point where you're comfortable moving forward instead of making the leap all at once. Background for me, I used to spend every summer up here as a kid. My mom grew up here, and I've spent all of my life trying to get back here. So right back at you, Rachel.
Great, thank you both. So with that information as a backdrop, can you talk about some of the companies that you have worked with by sharing information about the company, what they do, and what their needs were when they came to you for your services, and how you provided that support to the company? Rachel, we'll have you lead off the conversation.
Sure. So I'm going to give two different examples, since I'm really talking a little bit about the Inventa NMU program we manage as well as our SmartZone. But Inventa NMU is a program at Northern Michigan University that has student employees that work on real-world client and student and faculty products and projects. And the biggest success story I think that we've had that came out of that program is one that's called Tin Knocker Tool. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with what a tin knocker is, but we had a client named Ron who came in one day, and his job for the last 20 to 30 years has been installing HVAC ducting, so like heating and cooling ducting that you see in big buildings. And the only way to connect two pieces of ducting is with a T-shaped cleat that you drive up by hand using a hammer. And you just keep pounding that up until it fully connects the two pieces of ducting together. And unfortunately, there hasn't been an automated way to do that. And so Ron, one day after a couple rotator cuff surgeries, is like, I have to come up with something else. Otherwise, I'm going to end up back in the hospital for surgery again. And so he went home, cut apart a couple different tools that he had in his garage, welded them back together, and created his quote unquote tin knocker tool that goes into a Hilti hammer drill that you can it kind of pounds things like a hammer does, except it looks like a drill driver. And you put this tool into it, you pull the trigger, and it just drives the cleat right up into the ducting, and you have it fully automated mostly automated process. And so he came to us for help with refining his design. We were able to work with him and engineering students and some professors at Northern Michigan University to come up with a manufacturable product. Our graphic designers were able to help him come up with packaging designs and posters and marketing materials. And then our other students were able to help, our marketing students were able to help him come up with an e-commerce website and have a local launch marketing plan. Our advanced CNC manufacturing class at Northern made an initial run of 20 units. And then the students were able to help him launch this with an ad and a story on our local news channel called TV6. That news story was actually seen by a company, CEO of a company downstate called Midwest Snips, who was so interested in the product, he actually called and made a meeting to drive up with his CFO and one of his product development people to meet Ron at our SmartZone office, all the way from Sturgis, Michigan, down by the Indiana border. And that product has since been licensed by that company and is being sold worldwide. So we have a Michigan inventor that partners with a Michigan-based company to sell a product now that he came up with in his garage and was able to be made possible in partnership with a group of a student team and other resources at our university in SmartZone.
Wow, Rachel, that's an incredible story. Now, that came out of the Invent at NMU project. So can we pause there for a moment? Can you tell us a little bit about that program, its origination, and kind of what the overall goals are for Invent at NMU?
Mm-hmm. So Invent at NMU in itself is actually kind of like a startup idea. It was brought to the attention to the university by a local inventor. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Dave Olala. He's also instrumental in 100K ideas down in Flint. But he's a Marquette native originally, came up with the idea, pitched it to the university, and they agreed to fund it for the first 3 years as a pilot. And what it was really created to do was to take students at the university that are getting all kinds of book learning and knowledge and have access to their professors, to be able to take that capability and give them real world experience helping people in the community, other students and faculty and staff at the university in launching their physical product and business and like kind of small business ideas. initially the thought was things that would take less than a year and less than $100,000 to launch, and to be able to have them be something that might not be necessarily a full-time job for someone or a full-time gig, but something that generates enough side income that you have a great side hustle that can help pay for a couple extra trips or maybe a new camper or something like that.
Great, thank you, Rachel. And I believe you have a couple of examples to share with us from the Innovate Marquette SmartZone side.
Yep. So one example that I'm really excited to share with you today is our local Britta Carlson is a occupational therapist here in Marquette. She studied at Northern Michigan University and was an Olympic weightlifter that actually competed internationally during her time there before pursuing her graduate degree at GVSU in Grand Rapids. And she is back in Marquette now and came up with this idea for initially a platform that allows medical health professionals, initially in the occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, and physical therapy, to share the content and tools that they create to better help patients and patient outcomes. So she's not, there's going to be other features in the future, but initially she's launching next week this platform at the American Occupational Therapy Association annual conference, which has been moved digitally this year, but they're still able to host their Innovators Showcase that she was selected for, which is very exciting. And this platform is really to help, say, an occupational therapist that might be helping someone that's had a knee surgery and is trying to figure out how to get around again. Maybe you have maybe the occupational therapist has created a specific handout that they want to make available to other occupational therapists around the country that are dealing with people that have similar problems. And this platform allows for the sharing of that information and eventually other activities like video conferencing and more remote telehealth type services as well. But she's very excited to be launching that next week.
What a great story, Rachel. Now, was the SmartZone involved, or are you involved in helping her prep for this upcoming virtual seminar?
Yep, so that's one of the main things our SmartZone does is consulting. So when Britta you actually had to apply to get into this Innovators Showcase at this national conference. And so she was able to come to us for help in the application process and be like, all right, am I pitching this right? And am I positioning this just so? And just having the ability to bounce ideas off of other people and to get the feedback on, like, what is someone looking for when you're getting a pitch ready is really what we're able to help do.
Great, excellent. Now, Dan, we'll toss it over to you. If you could tell us about some of the companies that the MTEC supports and what their needs were and how you worked with them.
Sure. I have three examples I'd like to kind of discuss. One, obviously, is the rocket science company Orbion. They're making plasma thrusters for satellites. The founder of that is a professor at Michigan Tech. They've located their organization in one of our oldest facilities. It's an 1800s steam generation electric plant. And they've been expanding greatly. They've grown probably to over 20 people in the course of the last year. We help them with hiring. We have a hiring and recruiting organization that's located on site in the powerhouse. And they've been hiring a number of PhD students coming out of Michigan Tech, and they're using vacuum chambers and other facilities at Michigan Tech. So kind of a seamless boundary between the university, the students, the founder, and us. They just picked up another $10 million of funding last fall. We helped put that together for them. We've hired consultants to help them develop a supply chain, which, as you might guess, for satellite parts isn't just like picking up the yellow pages. The other company that we have, also a Michigan Tech professor, Guy Hembroff is the director of the cybersecurity department of Michigan Tech, and he's worked with Michigan Municipal League to address one of the problems that they face quite acutely up here in the Upper Peninsula, and that's mental health transport. Currently, when you have a mental health transport, you have to have an officer of the court transport the patient to the nearest available bed, which in our case could be hundreds of miles away, and it could actually be reallocated while they're en route, which means they have to turn around and find another one. Then that officer of the court has to get all the way back up here. So he's putting that together. He's getting access to patient records. He's handling the HIPAA issues. He's handling the remote diagnostic issues and so forth, which will have a pretty significant improvement to most of the downtown areas that are kind of afflicted with this issue. The third one couldn't be further away from that. It's a guy that has a bagel and coffee shop downtown in Sheldon Avenue here in Houghton. He's an older gentleman, spent most of his life up in Alaska, came down here, and his biggest complaint was his employees spent more time on their phones than they did actually working with the customers and doing the stuff he'd hired them to do. So he came up with an idea of taking the employee's cell phone when they come in, they put it into a device that he's designed, and as soon as they put it in that device, they're logged onto the payroll system. They can have their phone back anytime they want. As soon as they pull it out of the device, though, they're off the clock. Now, that might seem a little harsh, except that he offers $1 or $2 an hour more than other businesses in the area for the same work. So he shares the benefit of the productivity increase. He's interesting because he has a number of student software developers and hardware developers from Michigan Tech working on his device. So the three of them, they kind of run the gamut of different types of people we help with and work.
Great examples. Thank you, Dan. Now let's go back to Orbion for a minute. Can you talk a little bit about Orbion was a spin out at Michigan Tech. Can you talk a little bit about the transition, or is there some type of a baton handover between a university and the SmartZone? How does that work?
Great question. I like to avoid handoffs wherever possible. We like to work with Michigan Tech in conjunction with each other for the different things that we can do. My office is in the Lakeshore Center, 2 floors down from Jim Baker, who handles technology and innovation here, and next to Dave Reed, who is the VP of Research. The idea is we all have things that we can do to accelerate and support Orbion. Their $10 million round of funding, for example, the first thing that the investors did in due diligence was contact Michigan Tech to find out what horribly onerous terms might be in the license agreement. 2 emails and a 5-minute phone call later, they found out that Michigan Tech is a very pragmatic organization and doesn't want to snuff out innovation. We can come back and forth. I can go upstairs to Jim Baker's office and say, hey, we're thinking of working with another partner. How would we do this? That way we provide kind of a seamless support of the organization. They can work back and forth in Michigan Tech and use the facilities. Their people from Michigan Tech can come over to the SmartZone facilities. And it's a nice tapestry of things we can work on together.
Excellent, thank you. Now, in the conversation, you both have mentioned a couple of locations regarding or related to your smart zones. So do you manage office space as well? And if so, how does that work? Do you have co-working locations and those types of things? So what do you have to offer a startup or a high-tech company as it relates to office space?
Go first, Rachel.
I'll go first.
Sorry, Rachel, we'll go with you first.
Worries. So we're actually co-located with the Invent at NMU program right next to Northern Michigan University. We're just across the street from the University Center, so it's really easy for our student employees to get to and from the office. We're actually in a renovated bank building, so yes, we still have the vault. No, you don't want to get stuck in it because we don't have this combination anymore. But it's a unique environment that we're looking to expand upon in the future, because while it's really located next to the university, it's a little bit removed from downtown. But we're really lucky. I'm actually borrowing an office today from the co-working space that we have called Campfire Coworks, where we're hoping to open up, have a couple of desks at least for clients to be able to use in the near future if we are able to secure a grant that we applied for. More long-term, we're looking at another space downtown that hasn't been developed yet, but is in the process that would allow us to actually have physical working space for our clients. right now, of course, they're welcome to drop in anytime to borrow an office or to stop in here at the co-working space where we have some space place for them. But we're looking forward to more opportunities in the future.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Dan, how about MTEC?
So we have 3 facilities. They're all older buildings. As I mentioned, the powerhouse is from the 1800s. The building that I'm in with Michigan Tech was built in the early 1920s as a freight warehouse down on a rail yard. And then the other facility over in Hancock it's an old hospital. And we have the 4th floor of that hospital, which used to be the birthing floor and did in fact have an incubator in it. 1 or 2 of our clients were actually either born or had their families there, which is full circle. We provide office space, but we're also moving more to an enhanced facility model. So I buy lab equipment, I buy benches, furnaces, fume hoods, and things like that. And the objective is to make specialized spaces. The idea being these guys can come in, they can ramp up fairly quickly, find out what they actually need, and then move into the community and pay rent in the downtown areas. That's a win for everybody, but to get somebody convinced that they can do it, they need that safe space. So we provide that for them.
Great, thank you, Dan. Now we've talked a little bit about your organizations and the services that you provide for companies. Can you tell us a little bit about how you support the students in both of your respective universities and some of their interest in entrepreneurship? So Rachel, tell us a little bit about your collaboration with Northern Michigan University there in Marquette.
So Inventa NMU is really unique in that we have both student employees and then also serve student inventors and entrepreneurs. As a former student employee myself, I can say that it was a great experience. I would not be doing what I'm doing today if I had not had that experience as a student employee. You're able to work with others from the schools of art and design, business, engineering, marketing, public relations, and then some occasional specialty, more hands-on, like furniture crafting or welding or something like that. And to be able to get that experience of working with an interdisciplinary team on real-world client projects where you have deadlines, and when you mess up, you have to own the mistake and figure out a way to fix it and make sure that the client is happy, is something I think that is rather unique. And I mean, you find programs like that at other universities, but this was as far as I'm aware, a first of its kind thing at Northern, where it was really focused on business and entrepreneurship. And I would say, I think that we've had over 55 student employees at our organization that are full-time students, part-time professionals, that are able to graduate with a portfolio of work then that they can go out and show prospective employers and say, I actually worked on this, or I designed this. Some of our students actually even have been co-named on patents while they were student employees, which was really awesome. And on the other side, we do have entrepreneurship students, both that come in as classes and as just individuals to bring their ideas forward. We've had some very unique ones come through. Of course, everything's under confidentiality agreements, so I can't really talk about any of the ones that aren't out yet, but one launched one that was interesting was a product that helps you remove the limes from beer bottles after the beer has been consumed. So you don't have that nasty mold growing at the bottom of the can or bottle before you can return it. You see that as a university student, but you know, hey, it works. It's the start of something. We like to say that if you're someone that comes up with an idea, you're probably going to have more ideas. So let's start somewhere. Outside of the university, we do also engage a little bit with the community and high school students as well. We'll have students from like Business Professionals of America groups come in for presentations, or we have a annual group from the Central America Youth Ambassador Program that comes up. And that's a really unique opportunity because all the presentation is done through a translator. So the students get an opportunity to like introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they're doing with the experience of having someone translate that to a different language and then have questions asked back. And it's really a fun, unique opportunity that you don't get to have every day as a student.
Excellent, thanks, Rachel. Dan, how about you with the Michigan Tech University over in Houghton?
Sure, we do a lot of outreach into the university. This last fall, for example, all of our SmartZone employees participated in an introduction to entrepreneurship class that was taught there. We brought over Honest Time and we brought over Nanosound. And the objective was to have the students split off into virtual C-suites for each of these and create pitch decks and practice pitching. We worked this in conjunction with a program going on at University of Michigan at the time. And then we went downstate with Nanosound to have him present. The idea was real time for the students to develop the pitch deck, real-time benefit for the entrepreneur to be able to pitch something. Of course, 8 hours of practicing in front of an empty windshield as he drove down there. We also have interns, not nearly as many as Rachel does. We really only started the intern program last summer, but it's a two-part intern program. The intern starts here, spends the summer working here and understanding what we do, and then spends the next semester working for the IP group, the intellectual property group, Jim Baker's group, upstairs. Then that student will introduce that program to the next inbound intern, and that same thing happens. And the idea is to have them rotate through both functions, since they're inextricably aligned, to teach them how those things are in fact aligned and what to do with them. We do career day outreach, we do K through 12 types of activities, basically trying to teach kids that whatever they want to do and wherever they want to do it, there's a way. If they would like to stay here, we'll tell them what's available here, but also tell them how to set something up or how to work something somewhere else in any other part of the world, because there is no such thing as distance anymore.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. Rachel, how important is the role of the SmartZone in your community? Can you tell us a little bit about how you engage your community, maybe some of the events that you have to get everyone involved?
Yeah, so I think we fill a really unique niche. Like I mentioned earlier, our SmartZone has only been around for 5 years. For the first year, even there was just the one employee, the CEO. So we're really just kind of getting our feet under us. But you know, we have a DDA, a Downtown Development Authority. We've got a group membership organization that's kind of like a chamber called LSCP, and other organizations like Accelerate UP that helps like small businesses. But we're uniquely situated in that we're here to really try to help and grow the tech business space. And while we don't have a whole lot of those businesses yet, I think we're really helping to drive the culture and creativity, or we're working to drive the culture and creativity that promotes and allows that. And we do a lot of this right now through events. We have a monthly ongoing Business on Tap series where we'll have a speaker expert in a specific subject matter area come in and talk about something. We've just, well, right before the pandemic, we tried to launch a Gigs and Bytes, which was a little bit more tech specific, where it would be more on like coding or AI or machine learning. And we're looking to really revamp and get that one going either digitally or in person as we're allowed to get groups back in person again. And then lastly is our Women in Entrepreneurship event. And I save this one for last because while our other events usually draw anywhere from like 30 to 50 people, we've had our Women in Entrepreneurship events once a year. We've just switched to biannually now because there's such demand. And we saw over 125 attendees at our last Women in Entrepreneurship event. And when we asked how many of those ladies there had either ideas for a business or had already launched a business, over half raised their hand. So that was a really great thing to see in our community. And I think that just goes to show that while it's slow and steady, we are building this kind of larger wave as you get closer to the shore of entrepreneurship and people that have ideas that maybe just need to be like teased out and brought to the surface.
Thank you, Rachel. Great stories. Dan, how about with MTEC?
So the SmartZone in Houghton and Hancock, I think we're one of the few that actually has 2 cities as part of our group. We wrestle with the perception that they think we only do technology, and they think we only do technology for Michigan Tech. Our role is to tell them that basically it's so much fun to start any business of any kind here that there's kind of a bleed-off effect on the people doing just the technology-based things as well. So we'll help people like 2 high school students up in Calumet that wanted to start a dog grooming business. We help them get up and running. We help the guy that has the sandwich shop. these are all people that we bring through our Smart Start programming, which is a 6-7 week, 2 hours a week activity we have to do virtually now, or get to do virtually now. And we've cut it down to Quick Start, which is a 1 or 2 hour presentation we can do for DDAs, we can do in coffee shops, we can do for clusters of people that have become aware that there is something they might do. And we're working on something called Early Start, where we can do these half-hour pitches in K through 12 setting. We're not going to burn the kids out and teach them the fundamentals of finance, but we're going to teach them that if you have a cool idea and you want to do it, here's how you can do it. And this is just a lot of fun to do this type of thing. So that's the bulk of our outreach. It's getting a little bit better. Now we're having second and third effect feedback into the program. A friend will tell a friend, and it's building quite nicely.
Great examples from both of you. Thank you. Now, with all the work that you do to support, the companies and the startups and all of your activities and events, how do you measure success? Do you track metrics? Do you track outcomes of your programs? And if so, what types of things do you measure?
Can I go first this time? Can I go first?
Oh, sure. Dan,
Rachel gets all the good questions.
Of course. Dan, we'll start with you.
Sorry, Rachel, but thank you. So we measure all the typical stuff. How many new companies were started? How many companies do we serve? How many jobs were created? What's the average pay? What's the demographic mix? All of those are just the ground rules for how we figure out what we're doing. The other thing we're doing is we start looking at the number of people coming in just to ask questions. What's the volume of people that are just interested generally but aren't ready to take that first step? How many times do we get asked to speak to a non-technical event about things that people might want to do? For example, we got one company in that's going to automate beach signals, so you don't have to have red, yellow, and green flags, but you can see on your phone and there will be a semaphore. That was from somebody that had been at one of our coffee activities or one of our keto breakfasts or something like that. They hear what we do, they want to talk about it, and the next month they're willing to pitch it. So we have the traditional metrics, but we also measure ourselves by other interesting and cool things that are happening, growing the community.
Thanks, Dan. Rachel, how about you?
I think Dan summed it up pretty good there, actually. Stole my answer. But no, we're really collecting a lot of the same metrics. I mean, like I said, we're a little bit younger yet. We just brought a full-time marketing manager on last year, but we're really interested and excited to see the conversions that we get. So with all of these events that we're doing, are we really executing and drawing out actual ideas from these community events that are hopefully bringing people to our table and bringing them out with the innovations they might have.
Excellent, thank you. Now in closing, before we open it up to questions, what is the one key takeaway that you would like our attendees to remember about your organization and the work that you do? And Dan, we'll start with you.
Yes. One of the questions in the Q&A section, can you assist companies virtually, or are you only available to those in the UP? I think the takeaway is, if you've got a cool idea, I'd like to have it happen in Michigan. I'd like to help you connect anywhere you want to connect around the world, because to me, that's just fun, right? I enjoy watching success. I enjoy seeing new ideas. We have enough things to do up here. Naturally, you're going to have to put up with a pitch for me to move here to Houghton, but we'll help anybody throughout Michigan, throughout the U.S., throughout the world.
Thanks, Dan. And Rachel, finish us up.
So we like to say all ideas are worth exploring, whether it's high tech, no tech, or low tech. We're here for you. And if we can't help you, we'll help you find someone else in this Michigan ecosystem that can. We've got a lot of great connectivity and resources here in the state, and we really all work together super well. And I think that it would be, that's what we're here to do. We're here to support entrepreneurs and innovators and make things happen here in Michigan.
Great, thank you both. And to Rachel's point and Dan's as well, the MEDC supports a vast array of partners and service providers and universities across the state of Michigan. And to learn more about what we do and how to connect, you can visit michiganbusiness.org/entrepreneurship. Thank you both for sharing all the great information about your organizations and the work that you do. If anyone listening or attending today would like to reach out to Rachel or Dan or myself, all of our contact information is located within the speaker details, along with links to how to reach out to us. And now, with a few moments left, I'd like to open it up for questions. I see some of them coming through on the Q&A, so I'll go ahead and open that up and begin reading through them.
So there was a question, and this was on the chat side, to name the U of M pitch program. It's actually Dave Brophy's entrepreneurship course. And so Dave broadcast his first hour of his class up to us, and then we developed a pitch event and had a second hour of our local programming time. So anything that Dave Brophy's involved in, we're fans of.
Excellent. And then it says, there's another question here. Going into September 2020, what do you think your percentage split will be in-person or online events?
I think we're going to be playing it by ear, honestly. I think that we've had this event planned all summer that we do called Bites with Bugsy, where we have a local social digital marketing expert come in and speak. And while he's very adamant that he wants to do it in person. So now that we have the opportunity to do something in person, we'll probably do his series in person. The gigs and bites, I think we'll be looking at doing a little bit more mixed, remote and in person, especially because we're hoping for speakers maybe that have some connection to the Marquette area or the UP, but aren't necessarily still living here. So it'll probably be, I would guess, 50-50. I mean, given no unforeseen, back into lockdown situations again, just to keep it mixed up and make sure that we're able to service both people locally here as well as people a little bit further abroad in our community.
Sure. Now I see another question here for you, Rachel. It says, from a curriculum standpoint, how does the NMU entrepreneurship program compare with the SME and MIT programs?
So I would probably say not very much. So, I mean, we have a great curriculum and great program here, but it's like comparing apples to oranges. I mean, we're both fruit, yes, but MIT and that are probably a little bit more aligned with the Houghton, Michigan tech type model, where it's more high-tech research entrepreneurship. NMU entrepreneurship, at least as my experience, and this is my experience in my opinion, going through the program, is really focused more on like regional or maybe like less high tech physical product type situations. So we have a great outdoors culture here. If you want to do something in the outdoor industry or like outdoor product type thing, probably would be a great experience because there's an outdoor rec program that you could like dual degree in, and a bunch of resources and connections to industries. Like Trek Bike does all of their testing up here. So looking for maybe that would be more of Northern Michigan University entrepreneurship versus satellite thrusters at MIT or Michigan Tech.
Great. Dan, how about you? Do you have any feedback from the entrepreneurship programs at Tech and how you guys might interact with those?
Sure. So we interact both at the classroom level and at the student level. What we're trying to do now, getting back to that allocation of, in real time or in-person stuff, what we've done with Smart Start is we've encapsulated chunks of the learning in virtual things, which gives it flexibility to people that might not be able to make it from 5 to 7 every week on Monday night. What we do see as beneficial is a in-person ideation phase, where 5 to 10 people in the room help each other kind of flesh out what it is they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, throw some more ideas, throw some more innovations up on the wall. Those things almost always have to be in person because there's a dynamic, you have to read the body language and see how the groups are working together. Can't necessarily see that virtually. So we've been wrestling with it. We've brought some of our facilities back online, places where we can get 10 people in a room and still have 6 to 10 feet between them all. As it compares with other colleges and universities, I hear them all wrestling with the same issues. We do some work with GoGebic to try and figure out where these people fit from that curriculum standpoint. Same with Finlandia, same with the high schools and so forth in the area. We're still working out how all of that fits because they don't all necessarily want anything to do with technology. They have an idea or they have a goal in terms of what they would like to do for a job. And we try to push them in the direction that will give them satisfaction in that domain.
Great, thanks, Dan. Now I want to circle back to something Rachel brought up. You mentioned a company doing testing in the UP. So Dan, we'll start with you. What type of test facilities or assets do you have, if you will, that companies can use and make use of as part of the SmartZone or part of the local area to test products and make sure that they can get them to market efficiently and effectively?
Sure. Well, I'll give you a big example, which is an MEDC program, Planet M. I think Planet M, when Charlie came up for the board meeting last fall, took a look around and realized that it was kind of missing from the list of assets that Michigan has. We have a couple 100 inches of snow. We've got a test track by the airport. We can do all kinds of vehicle and mobility characterizations, and we don't have to pay for refrigeration. That comes naturally. We can get anything built, made, or fixed within 10 miles of that facility, 15. And we've got all the research assets of Michigan Tech, dynamometers, sound chambers, vibration chambers. All of that is right here in the area, but it's kind of overlooked because we're not really thought of as a mobility-centric area. And yet we are. The Army set up that thing up at the airport back in the 40s to figure out how to do harsh vehicle testing for the military.
Great. And Rachel, how about over at Innovate Marquette?
So we don't have anything specific set up like that, but as Dan mentioned, we get a lot of snow. We get over 300 inches of snow a year up here in the UP. So if it's anything outdoors, winter related, we've got bike trails. I mean, as well as the whole UP being a very rural environment. I mean, it's absolutely insane when you think about it. We're 1/3 of the actual physical geography of the state of Michigan, and only 3% of the population spread out over that. And so if you have an idea for a rural healthcare type product or a rural transportation product, I mean, you have an opportunity here right in our state to roll it out. And I think you'll find that a lot of our businesses and regional corporates are open to at least a conversation about the opportunity to try those kind of things.
Thank you. So it looks like we have answered all of our questions in the chat as well as the Q&A section. And I think we have reached a point where we have touched on all of our discussion points for this particular program. Piper, at this point in time, if we have nothing else, I'd turn it back over to you to wrap up in today's conversation. I hope all of our attendees enjoyed the discussion and enjoy the rest of Detroit Startup Week.
Yes, thank you. And also, if folks didn't catch it, can you just name quickly where they can follow up with all three of you?
Absolutely. All of our information, I believe, is in our speaker information, but to learn more about the MEDC programs for entrepreneurship and innovation, you can visit michiganbusiness.org/entrepreneurship.
Or check out Marquette SmartZone at www.imqt.org.
Or www.mtechsz.com.
Thank you for that. Thank you for all of this great information and the time you took to spend with us. That was really, really wonderful. So this concludes this session. We hope you enjoyed it with Detroit Startup Week and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everybody.